New for 96. With your hosts, Kevin McCauley and Chris Nguyen.
What's the most awkward model year car you've ever had?
Oh, like my own personal car?
Yeah.
What does awkward mean?
Really, I think I landed on one thing. I think we're kind of at a point where it's like if you have a 2019, you could say, "Oh, I have a 19." People know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
They know you're not talking about a near minor person. If you say
I don't
you
think
have
we know anyone who has like a 19, as in like, oh no, I'm at a 1919.
But like, if you have a 10,
Yes.
that's weird. Like if you have like a 2010 car and you're like, "Oh yeah, I have a 10." It's a 10 Nissan Sentra. That's a weird year.
I think
That's weird.
If you have a 10, you would just say 2010.
But that's weird that it's different.
I guess so, but
Most years you can say the two numbers, for example, 96 are namesake.
Yeah. And I guess you would say like 09.
Yeah.
Or,
Yeah, 09.
Yeah.
09, 08, that's accepted.
What if
but
you
a
said
10 is weird.
I got a 10.
I like that.
Yeah.
People will think you're in the Matrix.
Yeah.
So my 80 is an awkward model year. I think anything that lands on
A 10?
the 10 is
Except
weird.
for a 20.
I think 20 is going to be a weird one.
I guess.
Yeah.
Maybe.
I don't know. But with the 80,
I
it's
think-
weird because people think 80 what? They don't know if I'm finished. They ask people always ask what year is that car? They always want to know because they always got guesses.
Yeah.
and it's like I say it's an 80 and they're like, "Oh, you're done." 80.
Yes.
I was waiting for 80 something.
I think you've just made it awkward. You've introduced it into the ether, and so now we all breathe it in.
Exactly. Mhm.
Okay, that's what you meant by awkward?
That's what I meant by a good subject.
Okay. What about, I guess so, a 70?
I think-
60? 50?
Yeah, I think it still always just sounds like it's an incomplete thought.
What about an 00?
Ooh.
2000?
I think 00 is the exception.
You gotta say
It's
2000.
weird. Yeah, I have a 2000 and
Yeah,
nothing.
you would say 2000.
Sure.
Because it's such a momentous year, even though it's technically not
Yeah.
the first year.
This
of
is
new
a Millennium Edition, Lost
Yeah.
to Millennia.
Not quite millennium. Did they actually release that in the year 2000?
The Millennium Edition?
Yeah.
I don't know. It might have been a 99 or a 2000. I know it got the facelift in 01.
Did it?
01 model year.
I actually remember the article in Car and Driver because I really liked the Millennia, and the facelift was worse. Like, it made it worse. No, it had two facelifts.
It actually had, what's really funny is that at Radwood we saw the Mercedes 300 CE.
Yeah.
And
then
how there was like the early one, and then it became the E-Class Coupe,
Yeah.
I think, and it got the Bruno Sacco, they were both Bruno Sacco, but it got like the SL style update where it was like all body color,
Yeah.
bigger wheels,
No more
body color,
two-tone.
everything, no more two-tone,
Yeah.
and the Millennia got like a very similar facelift, especially because I picture the Millennium Edition in silver, but it lost the two-tone.
Yeah,
kind
lost the
of.
two-tone.
It got like just a little bit clearer, brighter,
Yeah.
sportier.
And the plastic headlights, the like clear headlights.
No, I'm not talking about. I'm talking about the first facelift.
Yeah, that's the first facelift.
Okay. It went from the projector things to the.
Yeah, just like clear headlights, which I guess we thought was fancy back then, but the projector glass was so much cooler.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then they had the last facelift.
And they had like the bee sting. Like it just got, it's weird. It's the same bodywork, but it looked puffier somehow.
It just got. It just had like bigger, dumber headlights and taillights.
It got the Saab 9.5, the Dame Edna treatment, except without the Dame Edna part.
Yeah. Well, my mom had one.
The facelift,
Yeah.
LCI .2.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Emerald green
Okay.
with the most uncomfortable seats in a car ever to this day.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they were just.
This
it
is
was
the
like
best
a
that
lawn
Mazda
chair.
had to offer.
It was like a lawn chair.
Oh
I don't
my
know what
God.
it was. It was like a perfectly flat piece of grayish leather.
I can't believe. I thought that was literally. I wonder if the 929 had better
Well,
seats.
I think because this was like the base model. Like maybe if you had the S, maybe if you had worked a little harder.
If you worked a little harder, you could afford the seat padding that did not come on the base model.
Yes.
I wonder if it was the same color as my Protege 5, which was emerald mica.
Oh, I bet it was.
Yeah.
Whoa.
I don't see Mazda developing like a proprietary paint color just for the Millennia. Maybe for the 929.
Well, the Millennium
gone
Edition
into-
had a good silver.
Did it?
Yeah.
It had different wheels too. It had like 5-spoke wheels
Yes.
that were chrome,
Yes.
which is bad. And
Right.
in period I thought it was like, oh, okay, it looks nice, I guess. But that first one, do you remember the wheels? It wasn't a rotary, it was a Miller cycle.
Right.
But it had like a triangle, a raised triangle in the like hub cover.
No, I have no idea what you're talking about.
Okay, I just remember this detail because I ordered as a kid. I like called into like 1-800 Mazda USA or something, and too many numbers, and ordered the brochure. And I had to call twice because the first time they were like, they knew I was a kid and declined the order, I guess.
What?
So I called back with a deeper voice, and it worked. Yeah.
I will not hang up until you put me on the phone with Bill Mazda.
Yes. Excuse me. I'm just finishing my scotch here. Yes. And that is a car that does not exist anymore.
That is a car that does not exist.
Yeah. Like, I don't recall when the last time was that I saw one. Even so, should we transition into?
We already are. You don't
Oh
have to
my
state
God.
it.
Okay.
Yeah, this is a concept that you have introduced recently that I'm a big fan of. What is a car that does not exist? A car that they built in large numbers that you
Recently.
do not see.
Yeah.
Yeah,
recently is in like the
recent
last 20
past.
years. Let's
Yeah,
just say.
yeah. I mean, you're not going to see a lot of like 1992 anything because
Yeah.
there's just not a lot of people drive 30-year-old
And we
cars.
tried this. We were at an outdoor patio and on a busy street, and I said, I think there are more 90s cars than you think floating around, and the only ones were pickup trucks,
Yeah.
basically. Okay, let's go through cars that don't exist anymore.
Okay.
So the New Beetle,
New Beetle.
even though it's a 98, started in 98. New Beetle, they're nowhere.
You occasionally see them, but for how many they built,
Yeah.
it is a car that is prohibitively horrible to keep running
I
for
think that's
no
what
reward.
happened. Yeah, I think that's what happened. Is basically like it is so hard to work on and so expensive, oddly enough, even though it was just a Golf underneath. And I had a coworker in the mid aughts who had one. I think just like a 1.8T or something. And I remember her crying because the dealer couldn't even fix her car.
Whoa.
And we worked across the street from the dealer, so it was easy to drop it off, but it was just never working correctly. And anyways, I that's a car that you don't see anymore.
hmm
Was the turbo any good? I've never driven one actually.
I've only driven the like 2011 updated one,
Okay.
but I would say none of them are good.
No. Yeah.
Um,
Was there like a Turbo S version?
there was.
Okay.
There was. In Europe, there was like a cool one, but
The one with body
repetitive
kit.
stress disorder, or RSI, or
Yeah,
what
yeah.
I don't know. Something.
I don't know. I don't know
It's a
the name,
medical
but I remember.
condition.
Yeah, I remember seeing it, and that one was kind of wild. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know what the engine was. Was it?
Probably the same.
Probably
but
the same, yeah.
It might have been a VR6, actually.
Did they not put a VR6 in? I guess they didn't. They were all the Turbo 4s
Yeah.
in the U.S. Okay, so that car, no
Yes.
more. What else?
Mercury Cougar. The New Edge Cougar. They
Yeah.
actually built those in high numbers, and you literally do not see them.
No,
They don't exist.
They don't exist. That had like a great design.
Yeah.
I don't know how good they were or how bad they were.
I mean, it was the same as a Contour, which also doesn't exist. For how many, like, potentially million they made
Yeah.
of Ford Contours, like, that's a car that doesn't exist.
Yeah.
You get in a lot of these cars in this area, like we talked about, where it's like they stuffed a V6 transverse into a front engine car
Yep.
with a million accessories and comfort things.
And it's basically a disposable
It is
vehicle.
impossible. For
Yeah,
people
so
to
I
work
take
on.
that back, my statement about how cars became unbreakable, because what we're realizing here is that's not actually the case. What happened?
Or we're singling out the ones that aren't unbreakable. But I mean, there is a point where there's fall off because a lot of people don't want to drive a 30-year-old car. They want more conveniences. They want more whatever. And then the theory I have is because you go to California, you see more older cars. And I think it's like the air conditioning breaks, and then it's like it's cheaper for me to just get another car
I
than
think
to
people
spend $1,400 on air conditioning.
still need like cheap transport, and I think if you're able to at least Frankenstein a working vehicle together, I think there's still like a need and a desire for that. But I think you're right about like the complication. I think if something even bigger than AC breaks, I think it's
But I mean, I think if for a lot of people, if it's $2,000 to fix AC, it's like this is not worth it in a 18-year-old car that's falling apart.
Yeah, maybe so. And
So you go to the next generation of Nissan.
I would actually say that in Portland, if you've ever been to the actually just the Pacific Northwest in general, cars are preserved there like unbelievably so. And I think it's just the no sunlight, melting paint. But I will see old cars that are clearly not like restored classics or anything, like just an 85 Accord or something, street park that looks pristine still.
You can't do that here.
Can't do that here.
So what is another car that doesn't exist?
Speaking of Fords, I think you don't see even the latest Ford Taurus anymore.
I was gonna say the oval facelift, like
Oh,
the
yeah.
oval Taurus
Well, that's
facelift,
definitely
that
gone.
doesn't exist.
That I think I actually see more first gens than I see the second gens.
Whoa.
On occasion, I'll still see like a first gen floating around. I think those were more workhorses than the second gen. And then
Yeah.
the generic gen. Actually, I take that back about just none of them. I think the third gen, which is basically just a second gen with a new face and trunk. You know
Yes.
the one I'm talking about?
That's what I said is the facelift second gen. The
Oh, yeah.
corrective,
Okay, yeah.
the like boring one.
Yeah, they like deleted the ovals from the
Yeah.
front and back. But that one I still see around.
You see those?
I see
never
those
see
around.
those.
Okay. I definitely don't see the ones that were based on the Ford 500. And I mean, I guess you do see like maybe I just ignore them, but I feel like I don't even see like the last Taurus. Maybe as like municipal cars or as police cars or something, but even then, not really, because police departments just buy new cars all the time. So they're all Explorers now. So
They're all Explorers.
a Taurus police car would stand out. Anything else?
We both said, I think, with a Mazda 3.
Yeah, the Mazda 3. I see one that's parked in this neighborhood. And that's the only reason why I ever see one. But I don't see the Mazda 3 hatch more so. I see the sedan sometimes.
I still see some of those, but the Mazda 6 you do not see.
No.
The first Mazda 6.
Those are gone.
Even this next gen Mazda 6.
No, yeah, with the wheel arches, they're gone.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is weird.
They are
Mazda
really
5. Basically, almost any Mazda from.
from more than 4 years ago.
Yeah, that is
That's not
kind of
a Miata.
strange. I mean, I think Mazdas are slightly more effort to keep up than like a Toyota or a Honda counterparts, but there's some cool cars that it seems like would have been worthwhile to maybe keep up. I don't know. Like the Mazda 5 was cool. Small van, could get it in a manual. I don't know if they were any good.
Well, what is a car or truck-ish vehicle that you see that's like 25 years old that you see disproportionately a lot of?
I would say like a GM truck or an F-150.
Okay. Well, non-truck.
Oh, non-truck.
Well, I
sorry.
said truck-ish.
Okay. Good cue. It's probably like the XV20 Camry.
Yeah, that is a good answer. I would say that first Ford Escape.
Oh,
You
yeah.
see a lot of those.
I do see a lot of
and
those.
it couldn't have been very good.
No.
Like, hardware-wise.
I see a lot of CRVs, first-gen CRVs.
Oh, yeah. Those are all over.
Those are, and I actually really like those.
I do, too.
Yeah.
I do, too.
I think those are worthwhile saving, but I also just don't, I think they don't break. And
Right,
so,
yeah.
catastrophically at least. So, yeah. Anything else?
I don't know. I wanted to move to the your pick because I thought it was interesting what you said of a car that is made today that you will not see in like 10 or 15 years.
Yeah. Okay.
So what do you got?
I'm going to go on a limb and say like a Tesla Model 3.
That is a good pick, although they will still be making the same one in 10
They will
years.
still be making the same one. That's why you'll see one. But from 2020,
Yeah.
or when did they come out? 2019? 20?
Yeah, roughly. Yeah, 2019, I think.
2019, I think it was. But I think these early models, they've made so many of them, and they will continue to make more of them. I don't know that they're going to be worth salvaging in the future when the traction battery dies. Say, for instance, in 10 years, and the warranty, I actually don't know what the warranty length is, but let's say it's 10 years, or whenever it is, you're just not going to see them anymore. This may be the case for a lot of EVs, just in general.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
the i3,
Right.
once that goes out,
There's going to be some component that's just
yeah.
not sustainable to keep it running, and the whole car is going to depend on it.
I do wonder, maybe these cars will go on mechanically if you have, like the Prius, say for instance, you had that guy come out and
That worked out real well for me.
The short of that story is it did not. But you can replace. I think it's a bit harder in an EV traction battery because the cell. First of all, the battery is not just in the trunk. It is like the floor of the car. So if it's not designed to be serviceable, easily serviceable, then I think that will be the holding point for that. But I don't know. I'm going to say, yeah, Model 3, but we should pick a gas car too, because that's sooner to be phased out than anything else.
Yeah, I mean, this is kind of cheating because it's not sold in large volumes, but I think any 7 Series after the year 2001 is not long for this world.
Yeah. I think I have to agree with you there, just because I think I'm already starting to see the like early 2010s versions being phased out. Like I don't really see them.
I mean, like a 2012 is worth like $18,000 now,
if even
because
that,
no
yeah.
one wants it. Is like poison.
It's a terribly unreliable car, and
Like ever more complex.
yeah, and I think the base engine is just the Turbo 6 from that's the same one that's in the 3 Series. But beyond that, the interior probably has all sorts of like proprietary like electronics that break.
It seems, the sense I have is that it is a car that is not made to last past the CPO period.
Yeah, I agree.
Like it is just not designed to have. It has no value after that.
Yeah, and I do think though that the E65 will outlive that car in terms of presence.
Well, I included that in my you won't see it because you already don't really see it.
I'm gonna argue that I actually still see those around,
Okay.
and I am surprised because those. I mean, if you remember the original advertising, it has an astronaut looking under the hood. And the astronaut is bewildered at how complex this car is. So
I remember it had technology so that the wiper could rest on different sides of the rubber.
yes,
So that it wouldn't become, worn.
they
too
really
much
should
on
not
one
have made
side.
that load-bearing technology to the whole car, but here we are. So, but that car did have like a lot of bespoke parts to it. Like I remember the steering wheel was unique.
Mhm.
The dash, like the gauges, were unique to that car, and I think the 6 Series.
Yeah.
And like
the 10 by 14 pixel display.
yeah, first iDrive widescreen, but so that is perhaps a car. Do you think that? Okay. Do you think that will ever become a future classic? Not E38 levels, but
I
there
think
will be
it will
interest?
gain appreciation,
yeah.
and I
Maybe
think a nice one would definitely be appreciated. But it's so buy here, pay here.
yeah,
Like there's so many that are so far gone.
it still exists as that
like
versus
it only exists in like faded, yellowed buy here, pay here form.
yeah.
I've never seen a nice one in 5 years.
I don't think I have either. Maybe I've seen like a B7 or something like that. I think
Oh,
people
yeah.
would keep that alive.
Sure.
So maybe the special ones
Mhm.
would be kept alive. But somehow like the next generation one, like I think I've seen a couple of B7s around, but somehow they seem less special than the
I
B7
used to
of the
see
E65.
when I worked downtown, I would see more of the whatever I'm calling it the F10 generation because they didn't actually give it a name.
Yeah.
That whatever that
F question mark?
2010 7 Series.
Yeah.
It's really weird they didn't give it a chassis name. They said this is too boring. It's very uninteresting. I used to see more of the Alpina versions than the regular ones.
Yeah.
When I worked downtown, like I would see them all the time.
I can actually specifically remember when I saw, not because it was so special, but just that I rarely saw them around.
Right.
And I mean, just that generation 7 in general, but I remember seeing specifically the B7s.
Yeah, and you don't see that generation at all.
Yeah.
Now I can't remember seeing one
I
of any
wonder
7 Series of that generation.
They just made like a million of those.
I
Like they're
think-
cashing in.
I think it is the F01.
Is it?
I think so.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah.
Really had to dig back into
Mhm.
the depths. You tried to forget it, but
I try to forget because it literally is like the name F10, but just with the numbers reversed.
yes. Do you remember well, we can get to it, but in the auction when someone tried to turn their E90 into a G series?
Yeah,
Update
they
the
tried
tech.
to turn it into the Best Buy stereo section.
Yeah. but we'll get into that.
We should just do that now. I think
Okay,
we're
we
ready.
can do that. Why
I think
not?
we're ready. Yeah,
Speaking
these
of
are
BMWs.
seamless segues.
Okay, so in 2020, February 2020, I sold my...
A month that will live in infamy.
Indeed. I sold my E91 3 Series wagon manual rear-wheel drive on Bring a Trailer, and it netted like a fine result, but disappointing in that it seemed like it should have been appreciated maybe a little bit more. And it
was a sort of a non-color, so that detracts. It was like
Tasman green.
Tasman green,
which is
but it was a
greenish gray.
manual rear-wheel drive E91, one of, as you know, like 750 or something.
Lowish miles, perfectly maintained, overly maintained.
Perfectly maintained.
And
under 70,000 miles, right at 70,000.
It was around 70,000 miles.
Yeah.
And the thing is, it was a base model, so that means no sports seats, no heated seats, no xenons,
No iDrive.
no iDrive, which is, I think, preferred.
You would think.
Single hump, they call it. And so we are, over the next 3 years.
I hate that term. I hate that.
Single hump?
Think of that. I'm gonna think.
You're
about
gonna have
this later.
to. iDrive is double hump. So.
God.
You're learning more BMW terms. Over the next 3 years.
Yours was the facelift.
Mine was the face. It was the. We won't call it by. This is the only car we won't call by its official name. It was the facelift, and over the next 3 years, of course, every time there's a new one listed, it's noticeable to me because first I subscribe to notifications, so I see when
you
these pop up.
Subscribe even though you have, despite the fact that you have no interest in buying another one.
No, and I do this for every car that I've ever owned. So we keep an eye out, or I keep an eye out, and every once in a while I send you a listing.
Do you have an alert for proteges on anywhere?
I do not. I don't think.
Has there ever been a protege on
No.
Bring a Trailer? Not even like an MP3.
I don't. Maybe an
Mazda
MP3.
Speed?
Maybe Mazda Speed or an MP3.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't recall though. So over the last 3 years, I have sent you listings, and you remark with interest, or maybe in mock. I'm not really sure.
I generally rally support for your car.
Yes.
And decry the other ones.
Yeah.
Because usually these BMW sickos they will overpay for some car because it has the M Sport designation, even if it's all-wheel drive or automatic. They prioritize the wrong things.
I think it's
because
crazy.
They're bad people.
I think it's crazy because
they are bad people. These are bad people.
I could see it if you valued originality, but all of these parts are available off the shelf. You can install these. It's fine. Like, I would rather buy a maintained car, and if I was obsessed with M Sport, I would just convert it to M Sport. But yeah, this car, cars with 30,000 more miles in auto will sell for more than my car sold for, and just for the M Sport. And people are obsessed with. The thing is that the tweaks are minor too. It's sports
like
seats.
ZHP.
It's like ZHP. Yeah, the obsession with that. And there are tweaks. We're not going to turn this to an internet comment section, but my God, the defenders of the ZHP. You can just say that it's a nice package that sharpens the handling, and it's an aero package just a bit, so it makes the normal one just a little bit better in theory. But these people will go as far as saying, actually, it's better than the E46 M3, and let me tell you why.
That's insane.
And the math does not add up, of course. So one E91 sold recently, actually yesterday.
Yes.
Okay. So this was
Allow me.
Yes, Kevin's been itching.
Chris sent me this car, and I was stewing over this listing. I watched this auction. It was a really bad car with a really annoying seller. It was matte blue wrapped.
Yes.
It had worse BMW wheels that were black. It had all this audio and lighting bullshit on the inside that was added aftermarket, and it was swapped to manual from an automatic.
Yep.
And it wasn't even listed as modified. You wouldn't even know it was swapped, I think, unless you read the last paragraph.
How this one was not labeled as modified on
I don't
Bring a Trailer,
understand it.
I do not understand, because the entire car was modified.
The entire car was modified. I have never seen more praise in the comment section for a car. Like, whoa, like what a great seller. Like he's very thorough. Like this is a good
insane
car.
because, while we do not condone shitting on auctions, positive is nice.
It took all my energy to not shit on this auction.
But if there were one.
I really wanted to shit on this one. And I really wanted to be like, I don't even know what I would say. Just like, wow, I didn't expect this to go for this much because it looks like an AutoZone exploded. But the buyer seemed happy and excited. And
Yeah,
he's
'cause
probably a terrible person too.
He got $29,000 out of this car, and it was over 100,000 miles.
No, I'm saying the buyer seemed happy.
Oh, I'm
like
sorry,
the guy
the buyer.
that bought it.
Yeah,
I don't want to
yeah,
just
yeah.
like yuck this guy's yum when he just spent $29,000 on this car. But the
Yes.
seller can eat shit. I don't care.
Yeah,
he
yeah,
has
yeah.
bad taste.
Yeah.
And he was very annoying and like overly
He really
just
wanted
attentive and talking about how great it is and just the confidence and assuredness that this was the best
Oh my
E91
God.
ever.
And he really wanted people to know his BMW provenance. So much so that I remember, here's the thing. I refused to watch this auction because I did not want to see it go for more than what my car had gone for.
Yes.
And you kept sending me things. So I was forced to pay attention to this auction. And at one point he had posted like a reverse camera because he'd installed a reverse camera. These cars don't come with it. And he was like, yeah, as you can see, like the reverse camera is very clear. You can see my E90 M3 in the background there. I'm like, all right, we get it. Okay.
Well, I watched it, which I regret, because this asshole added pictures every day to the
Yeah, oh,
auction.
yeah.
So I got an email that's like, new photos added to this.
Yeah.
And like he added photos of like in the comment like of before he ruined it
Yep.
with terrible modifications, like
Yep.
a matte blue wrap. It had horrible tint. It had horrible wheels. It had blacked out kidneys. Of course, that's a given. That's a given.
It had like this iDrive module that like converted the system to like a modern day BMW like OS or
Right.
something, and the edges like basically it didn't fit the pixels of the screen, and so like the time and the top of the screen basically was cut off.
Terrible.
So I don't know why you would want that. And it had like a Z4 as the car graphic, and he'd converted the gauges to a digital cluster.
Looked
His
terrible.
rationale
Looked terrible.
was, I wanted the tech and features of the G model into this, which is, first of all, the whole point of this car is that it is not one of the newer BMWs. Like, this is the last of any such modicum of the old BMW that people liked. So why would you want to do that? And that aside, I actually like the E90 gauges. Like, they're dimensional, they're simple, bewildering.
Absolutely.
Yes, and
So-
we don't mean to be mean. I tell you what.
I do.
I know you do, but here's the thing. Like, if anything at all, maybe this guy really knew his audience, and he ran an auction well enough to get a pretty stellar result.
$29,000 for a car that looks like a Pep Boys
Yeah.
aisle.
Do you agree with me when I was calling BMWs? There's some sort of aspirational blue aspiration for every BMW. Like, people just go gaga over blue BMWs, and it is like Ferrari red. And I don't understand it. Like, this guy, the guy who bought the car also had one, I guess an F31, so the next generation wagon, also in blue. And the blue is, I don't know what the modern name is, but it looks like Interlagos a little bit. So it's that color. I just don't understand the love for it.
I think it's because it's like a very daring color for a tech bro.
Yeah, I
Like
guess
that's
so.
like what they're comfortable with. Not daring.
Yeah.
A daring color for a tech bro. The ultimate tech bro color is Yas Marina blue.
Yes,
but then,
Marina blue,
But
yes.
then like this other blue that's like a medium blue. This is ultimate tech bro color. The app that they're developing, the app that they work on, the icon is blue because they're all blue.
Yep.
The car is blue. BMW's
Yes.
blue.
So this was an infuriating, almost didn't seem real auction.
I can't believe it, and I can't believe I subscribed to updates and saw it every day.
Do you remember, so shortly after I had sold my car, an acquaintance, also in Houston, had sold his 24,000 mile E91
Was it white?
manual. It was white
Yeah, I remember this.
with a sport package, not M Sport,
Okay.
just a sport package.
Okay.
And that car netted $27,000, something like that, or somewhere about the same price.
But if it had an M Sport,
if it had an M Sport or like terrible accessories,
yeah.
Last thing about this. So he had installed the security system or whatever, where you can adapt like a new key or a new looking key
Oh my
to it.
god.
And it's that dumb LCD one that came on like the i8. Do you
Oh my
remember?
god. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
That is basically the size of a Palm Pilot.
Yes, yes.
And
yes.
why? Like,
That's so
why?
terrible. That's so bad.
Anyways, okay. So,
I hate it.
speaking of inline sixes and rear-wheel drive wagons,
Yes.
you sold yours.
I sold the Sport Cross. It's been about a month and a half or two, but
Yeah.
I am so delighted with the outcome. The seller, he called about the car. He saw it listed online.
So you call yourself?
Well, yes. I mean, no, the buyer. Sorry, the guy that bought it. He came from Dallas. He has an IS300 sedan that's a manual. He's used to track it, and he knows a lot about cars.
Yeah.
And he knows what he's doing. And he came, looked at the car, but even before he came, I was like upfront about the paint and the sticky dash and the squeaky suspension. Which, I mean, just to recap, like I did everything I could to make the car right.
Yeah.
Over 3 years. I put a lot into it. I don't do the work myself, and it's like one of the last things was I redid all the lower control arms, and I think it made the suspension more squeaky because it brought out other things in other bushings that were bad. So I told him all this stuff, and he's like, yeah, that's how it is with these cars. Where do I sign? And I was like, okay. So he came, and he paid me a good price for the car, and he was really happy. And yeah, it's like the perfect scenario.
When you told me about you just listed the car and this guy like reached out, how many days was it listed?
It was listed for a few days before he found it.
Okay, still a few days. He reaches out and he's willing to pay full price, and he states as much, right?
Yes, he did.
And so I'm warning bells going off.
I'm ready. I am at the Western Union sending the money to Nigeria.
Yeah, he'll send you back. Yeah, exactly. He'll pay you more for the car, and then you send him some money
It
back.
all makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but you didn't end up in the back of a trunk of a Mercury Cougar. Like, yeah, he came, he picked up the car, he made a video of it.
Yeah, so he has a YouTube. If I can remember, we'll provide a link to it. You can see he had posted a video about redoing some of the upper control arms and just going under the car. He was really impressed with how good of shape it was. Basically, yeah, I was asking a little bit more for it because the market on these has shifted.
Yeah.
These are more sought after. And there's not a lot of good ones that are stock. I wouldn't even say mine's a great one, but it was stock. I made an effort. I cared for it. I did the timing belt.
The rarest bit of your car was that it was stock, honestly.
Yeah, he said that there was one that someone was asking like $7,000. It had a salvage title,
Yeah.
And so this one is a California car that came to Texas that was not, had no rust. Really clean underside, and I'd done a lot of maintenance. I had all the records and everything.
Yeah.
So he is going to make it perfect, and hopefully I can stop by and see it next time I'm in Dallas. Maybe.
Yeah.
That would be really cool. Or outside of Dallas, I don't know which suburb area.
And really, like the only flaw that was notable was that there was some like missing clear coat.
Yeah, I mean, I the hood lost all the clear coat because it was missing some, and then I pressure washed it, so it lost all. And then the top spoiler was missing clear coat, and he resprayed the spoiler.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
He said yeah, his sedan is silver, so he's like, I've got tons of this paint laying around. He had parts laying around. He has a transmission.
Millennium
he might
silver.
swap it manual.
Oh, I saw that in his video. He said that he might swap it manual.
He has the stuff to do it.
Which I think would be very cool.
It'd be so cool.
Yeah, absolutely.
So cool.
So
it is like the best possible scenario.
Absolutely.
Like I'm really happy with this. Like you always want your car to go to like a car guy who gets it and cherishes this thing that you love. And it made me so sad to realize I stopped loving this car. And so for it to go to someone like that makes it so much sweeter, so much better.
That happens for you on a much longer timetable than for me, which is usually as soon as I buy the car.
Oh my God.
Speaking of wagons and new cars, we did speak about this in the last episode, but you have a new car.
I have a new car. Yeah. The last time we talked about it was 3 months ago on the pod, and it had not arrived. So it arrived 3 months ago, and I've been driving it and loving my 2016 E350 Mercedes. 4MATIC wagon.
In indigo blue?
Indigo blue,
Yeah.
yes.
Indigo blue with a gray or oyster interior.
I think I'm not
It's like
sure
a
what
light
the
gray
color is called,
interior.
but it is a light gray interior.
But I think it looks good. It's like
It looks good. It's got the burl wood, and it's got the like dark gray top dash.
It's very classy.
It is classy.
And this is, we must state, not the AMG line.
It's not
which makes it rare.
It's the luxury package, so it has the traditional heritage grille.
Yes.
And no visible exhausts.
Hood ornament. Very important.
It's very important. So
The no visible exhaust is something that I've only learned from you owning this car, which is, I love that this car has no sporting intentions whatsoever.
Yes.
So you don't need visible exhaust, and so it doesn't have it.
No.
Which is amazing.
It is. It is. I really like that there's no like pretense of sportiness.
Yeah.
And it's not pretending. And, I told you, like, I've kind of gone back and forth. This is the LCI W212 or S212 E-Class. I've always thought this was kind of a weird generation where it's like the square body, and then it kind of has like almost next generation Mercedes inspired headlights that are kind of blobby.
Which we dub mid-morph.
Mid-morph.
Yeah.
And but with the luxury grille, it works so much better for me. Like the whole car just visually like works for me. I think when you start putting on that big central like AMG grille, and you've got like that whole rounded front fascia on this square body, then it looks really weird to me. And that is how 90% of them are.
It is. Which is, again, why this one is rare in this spec.
You know what Chris Perkins, friend of the pod, friend of us, was telling me was that the only reason that because I mentioned that there was another car I had looked at that was, or not looked at, but I was, considering, I had ordered pictures of and everything that had come into Porsche of Greenwich.
Yeah.
And he said that.
What a perfect place for that car.
Well, that is what I'm getting to, is that's what Chris Perkins says, that the only reason that Mercedes still offers the wagon E-Class is because of like Greenwich, Connecticut, basically.
Really?
Yeah, that is like such a big market for them that it kind of justifies the whole thing. Like it is such a like discreet wealth car.
It really is.
It justifies keeping this car in the lineup. For them.
The other car that is also probably kept alive by Greenwich, Connecticut.
We're out of time.
I'm going to go ahead and say it.
You remember that memory card? We're running out of
I'm going to say it. It's the Land Cruiser.
I know what you were going to say. That's why
of cars chosen by
cut that
the
off. But
discreetly wealthy.
So the E-Class, I love it. I love it so much. It is at the detailer right now to get hopefully some protection on the paint.
Yeah.
But it is in really good shape. It is as promised. It drives really nicely. It has adequate power. It is.
Yeah. I love that. I love this car for you. And honestly, I would, after my E63 wagon, the love has fallen out. I would even consider getting like a 213 wagon for myself. Like,
yeah, I like the way those look as well.
Yeah. And so I drove yours. We drove to Austin we were going to go to a rally school. Unfortunately, it was rained out. And so, but we still stayed in Austin for a couple of days, and I was very surprised at basically how untaxed the car felt. This is a car that does not make you feel like you need or want more because, first of all, it doesn't have any sporting intentions. So the acceleration is more than adequate.
Yes.
And it's effortless. As far as, the steering is a little bit light, but, it perfectly fits the car. Mm-hmm. The ride is firm, yet like very compliant.
Yeah.
So completely the opposite of mine. And like it's just comfortable. And this has the MB Tex, which actually I kind of prefer because it basically will never ever wear.
Yeah, it doesn't have the nice smell of your car.
Yeah, pencils or rubber, whatever you want to call it
or whatever.
Yeah.
But yeah, I really like it, and it is so nice. You just close the door, and it is like a plush vault.
Yeah.
And I don't like hear the outside world. It's just quiet. It's so relaxing. It is the contrast between this and my 911 just makes me love both of those experiences so much more because they both really shine. And like, yeah, the Sport Cross had amazing steering feel, but it also was bumpier and tighter, and just it was also an old car. So it's like, but the contrast between the 911 and the Sport Cross is like, oh, this is an old car, this is also an old car. And they both had their purposes, and the Sport Cross did me very well for a long time, but this is just like, it's a very nice car, it's a grown-up car, and I really enjoy just the difference with this and the 911. And then also, if I'm shooting a car and I'm driving something old and then I get back and to drive home, it's to get into this, it's just so nice to, it's just like relaxing. Oh, I I don't work in an office where I sit there and I want, and then it's like, time to go home. I come back to the car and it's like 8 o'clock at night, and I've shot a car and I've been out and running around and everything and driving something that probably smells like gas and has like a weird transmission or something. And then I get back in the Mercedes, the door closes, it's just like silent, and you've got the ambient lighting, and it's just a nice place to be. And it's like, I'm just wafted in comfort for the last bit home.
This is a 2016, but it feels very modern still.
Yes,
and
except for the engine, because it's not a 2-liter inline-4 turbo, which is a big important thing to me.
Yeah.
When I was looking at cars, I don't want the latest tech, especially with drivetrain stuff. And that's why like a Lexus appealed to me, because they still use the same engines from 10 years ago. And this car, which, is like the last year of NA Mercedes engines with the displacement that is on the tailgate.
Yes.
And the badge thing I'm saying in jest, I don't really want like a downsized turbo engine, really. This just drives nice and pleasant.
Yes. And it's very high quality. This is like the Mercedes of yore, basically, where it does not rattle. Everything fits so nicely. And like the fit and finish just in general, like all the touch controls, they've done away with all the soft touch stuff. And now it's like metal buttons. And
yeah, that's a good point. It is, it's interesting because I don't know. This is like a theory I have that I texted to Will, friend of the show, and I've said a million times, like, oh, something is like the iPhone of cars, but this is almost like the iPhone of cars in that there's the economy of scale. It's like, I don't think anyone else builds a mid-size luxury sedan on this scale.
Yeah.
So you have like, Mercedes globally, they can make it nicer because they're building a lot of them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
As opposed to a smaller volume vehicle like a 5 Series or whatever. Or any of the others. But
I think I would still think that is a vehicle that is high volume as well, but I think there's more economizing in that car. And while, I was telling you about how I was taking the trim piece out of the trunk to fix something, and on every single other car that I have ever owned, including BMWs, trim pieces are just clipped in. And, say for instance on my E90, and different class of car, I guess, but if I hit a pothole, the entire car exploded and rattles. In this car, even in my car, like with its like bump stop suspension, it doesn't rattle. The sunroof pops, but that's a whole panoramic roof issue. The car doesn't rattle at all. And that trim piece was screwed in with 8 screws, which was really frustrating, but also really fascinating.
Yeah.
These are really well-built cars. And I think these cars, back to our earlier conversation, the numbers will dwindle. I'm sure like people will trash these cars, but I think we will still see these cars 20 years into the future, still floating around. Like we still see 210s everywhere, W210s.
Yeah.
And that was knee deep in the Daimler Chrysler years, right?
I think it was.
I think it transitioned
period,
into.
I think it was all developed
It was,
Daimler,
I guess,
but it was like a low point, considered a low point for Mercedes build quality.
Yeah, into the 211 genre or class as well, generation, which was also not heralded as high quality, but people keep them around. I just had the Mercedes serviced at a shop that I'd never been to before, but it's in my neighborhood, and it's a Mercedes-only shop, and the guy's been working only on Mercedes for, I don't know, 40 years, something like that. And there were a bunch of like 210s in there, and I was surprised at how well they've held up. But people are servicing them, and it is what it is.
It's a good looking car.
It's a good looking
It's a
car.
210.
Yeah.
I was just in the UK.
Yes.
I saw a lot of C-Class wagons, which are so cool.
Those are very cool.
Like the 204
Yeah.
C-Class wagon. Very good.
Honestly, the perfect car for daily driving purposes for me would have been a C63 with a 6.2 in a wagon form.
Oh my God, yeah.
That would have been amazing. I love my E63, but it is a large vehicle, and I would love it if it were just slightly smaller, but
But you never
otherwise-
considered the C63 sedan.
I did a little bit, yeah. The head bolt issues scared me a little bit. I still look at them. They're on a search list because they continue to depreciate, which I think those are kind of timeless.
They're really timeless. Like
Yeah.
that is the best looking C-Class ever.
It's
for sure.
It is the car that won me over on AMGs because it was the first AMG I'd
Oh.
ever driven, and the raucous sound from that 6.2 that was transformative for me.
Yeah.
So, and speaking of which,
Yes.
so first of all, you've mentioned a couple of things. We have done a little bit of going to places and doing some things here and there.
Yes.
You were in England.
Yeah, I'll make this real quick because I think we have 15 other topics. But I went to Goodwood for the 80th members meeting with a friend of the pod, Tom, and two of his buddies. We flew across the pond. We went to Goodwood. It was amazing. I'd never been before. It's like, one of the oldest racetracks in England. It's one of the oldest racetracks anywhere. And they have a historic event that is just incredible. Like, I've been to a lot of historic races on this continent, and this was just like the prestige and the cars, the competition, and the track itself is just amazing. Like they plant daffodils like all around the track, so it looks cool in all your pictures and everything. There's no fencing. It's just like waist high gates. Like there's some runoff, but I mean they can do that because they're not having Formula One drive there or like IMSA or something where it's really fast
These
cars.
are vintage, a lot of vintage.
It's a lot of vintage
vehicles.
cars. They get up to speed. Like GT40s are no slouch, and these GT40s are kind of, for lack of a better word, they are kind of modern developed to be faster than the GT40 ever was, probably.
Yeah.
Through 60 years of R&D and improving the breed, but they are still not like modern top level race car quick, so they can have less safety precautions, and it's just a really special place. We had breakfast at the Goodwood House, which was really special, and we saw Gordon Murray. We saw all the Gordon Murray cars, which like
you saw his personal car.
it was probably his like company car that he's doing developed miles on, but yeah, you see like his parking space for Professor Gordon Murray, and
It's
a
very
T50 parked there with like prototype graphic on it.
And you did lift your shirt to have him sign.
Right on the
body
boob.
part.
Right on the boob.
Yep.
Yeah. I said, left-hand drive, do the left nip.
Yep.
So he had a bunch of development cars there in a row, which was cool. Yeah, the way they do it is, it's a neat place. They have fireworks.
You saw both the T50 and 33.
33, just the Roadster.
Okay.
They had the convertible. They debuted it there on that morning in person.
Okay.
We weren't at the debut because we were at the Goodwood House, I think, at that time, or they did it earlier than that. But we saw it after, and it looked good. I think the T50 looks really good, and I think it's a really cool thing. I mean, we could talk about the T50 all day. We'll save that for another show.
Yeah. That's very cool. I saw, big FOMO not going to that. It looks amazing. And I saw that the story you had posted with the Ford Cortinas, which is a whole racing class.
Yeah, so they have a whole class of these Ford Cortinas, which was like a sedan. They raced in the 60s, and like Jim Clark and all these top racing guys would race Cortinas, banging doors, and they have 35 cars that are Cortinas. They're all period, and they're all like period race Cortinas that have heritage and pedigree. and they go out there, and it's like modern drivers.
Tiff Needell?
Tiff Needell was out there, and I think one of the lead guys was Martin Brundle's one of his kids who races, and like there's a bunch of other people. I can't even name them all. I think maybe Dario. No, not Dario, but it looked like they were like 8 cars wide into turn 1. It was just so cool.
The story that you had posted was like you were on a corner and they were all like sliding in unison, like they're racing and they're sliding in unison, like 4 or 6 wide or whatever, and it looked wild.
It was so cool. Yeah, and they've all got cool, like amazing cool liveries, like cream with green and stuff, and just really good. So it was actually during that race, because it was a long race on the Sunday, like I think it was like 40 laps or something like that. So I walked the whole circuit basically during that race, which was cool. It was like, a mile and a half or something.
Yeah.
But I always enjoy walking a track every time I go to a track, just to like see the whole thing,
Yeah. Well, if it happens again, if the trip happens again next year, I
hope you could go. It would
it
would be really good.
Yeah. But you and we did take a trip recently to Austin this past weekend.
A trip to Radwood?
So you went to Goodwood, and then you thought, I'd go to the original show, Radwood.
Naturally.
Yes.
And Chris Perkins flew in from New York just to hang with us.
Yeah.
He came, stayed here in Houston, and then we all drove up. I say all, the 3 of us in 2 cars. We took our 911s up. Chris Perkins hopped between the cars.
Yeah. Chris Perkins.
Not while moving.
This is his third Radwood Austin. Yeah. Chris has flown down from New York. He works for Road and Track, and he came down. We went to Austin. Last year, you drove the Panda.
Last year, we took the Panda, and it was fairly catastrophic. So this year, we spent a lot of the time talking about, wow, it's really good that we're not in the Panda. Like, we're like really glad we did that, but we're really glad we weren't in the Panda. Because my car was, knock on wood, very problem-free.
Yeah.
Very nice.
So we both took old 911s up.
I had fixed my wipers the day before, possibly the day of, and I needed them for the torrential deluge.
They broke literally the day before, and they were not broken the next day. And when we were driving up, like maybe the last
20 minutes?
Yeah, something like
that.
From
Bastrop to...
We knew there was a storm coming in, but we thought maybe we could slip under.
By the time we passed through Bastrop, and then it's like, okay, we probably beat this.
Yeah.
And then the sky just turned black.
Oh, it was crazy.
Yeah.
It was like a threatening sky, and then it was a deluge.
It was.
It was fine. I mean, we didn't. Of course, everyone like slows down and whatnot, so it's not like terrible. But I don't think I've ever
except
driven.
For the pickup trucks.
Yeah, except for the pickup trucks, which are with the flashers on, zooming between cars.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't think I've ever driven this car through that bad of rain.
It's been a long time since I have. I don't know if it's ever been quite that bad.
Yeah. So, but we made it. The cars were filthy.
We had the same
fine.
B&B as last year.
Yep.
But it was a great event.
Yep.
We had a lot of fun. We saw a lot of cars and just had fun. Like, I don't know, Chris was saying after this, he's like, this is like the event that kind of is closest to Goodwood in spirit.
Yeah.
And he's been to Goodwood for a few things.
Yeah.
So, I mean, he would have to elaborate on that, but I think it's a fun theory that I'm willing to go with.
I'm willing to go with it. Yeah.
What were your picks from Radwood?
Oh, man. You know what? Like, honestly, my pick of the show was that German market Ford Explorer.
It was so cool.
So it was a first-gen Ford Explorer, and I had no idea this existed. So it was parked back-to-back with a Saline Ford Explorer, which I knew of that. I mean, obviously, we had those, and I remember reading about those in magazines. But this one, so apparently for the German market, they had German market only cladding and accessories, and it looks wild. We'll post this.
All different lighting and everything.
Yeah,
like the lights,
color-matched grill guard. So it has a grill guard, but it's color-matched, and there's like a Ford logo, because I think the grill guard blocks the teeny tiny Ford logo that used to be the size on these cars. And it looks like almost like a movie prop in a way.
Yeah.
Because it's just so like it looks like a concept car for the Ford Explorer.
Yeah.
And anyway, so this guy who was a Ford Explorer enthusiast, like
amazing.
He knew everything about it. Like, we talked to him.
And he owned both of them. He owned the Celine.
did he?
Yeah,
Okay, I
he
didn't
owned
know
the
that.
Celine Explorer as well.
Wow.
And I asked him, and they were limited to, or they only made 120.
Wait, really? They're that rare?
They're that rare. Because I remember
Wow.
that from. There was a white one at the first Radwood Austin.
Yeah.
And I remember it noting that it was very rare.
Oh,
and
man.
this was a black one that he had.
That's nuts. I
and
had
then,
no idea.
Yeah, and then he had this German one. which
Arguably even
I don't
more
know
rare.
I don't know if it's made in Germany because some of them, or because Ford made some cars in Germany. It was not.
He said that basically they made them here. So
Okay.
which is to be on the assembly plant and seeing like these parts that you'll never see again here,
Yeah.
basically. And it's funny what he said about the engine, because it was a Cologne V6 that was in it, and it is actually made in Cologne.
No way.
Which I always just thought it was a name.
Wow.
And it was made here, it's just a name. But so the engine is made over there, and then it's shipped over to the United States for assembly or to be installed into the car. And then the German market cars, they ship them back.
And then he shipped it back.
And then he
So
ships
this
it back
engine has
over here.
crossed the Atlantic 3 times.
It's crossed the Atlantic more times than a lot of people do in their lifetimes.
Yeah.
It's crazy. So, yeah, that was my pick. I mean, there were a lot of amazing. There was an RS2000 there.
Yeah.
And
An Oldsmobile Chiva.
yeah. Oh, yeah.
That was cool. I'm
Pristine.
laughing like I don't mean
No,
to.
I
I'm not
agree.
laughing like shitting on it.
No,
it
it
just
looked
cool.
good. It was like, it was, in 90s green.
Yeah.
And honestly, the only time, even I feel like in the 90s, you only ever saw those as rental cars.
Yeah. On the
So
X-Files.
that was pretty amazing.
And our friend Drew from the Hill Country Rally
Yeah.
came out and hung out with us there, and he had not been to Radwood.
Yeah.
And he thought it was cool, and I think he had a good time. And you said he was like, wanting to walk around and see everything and asking you questions about stuff. So that is
yeah, and
really cool.
he has a Radwood era car that I hope, if he still has it next year, we'll bring it. And
Yeah.
it's a 90s Land Cruiser, right-hand drive JDM import diesel, and it would fit in just perfectly.
It really would. Yeah.
And you know what? I'm really glad that we didn't see a lot of Porsches there.
I'm really glad. Yeah, it sucks that we brought ours.
I know.
It
the
sucks that
only
we
Radwood
kinda-
cars that we have.
brought the vibe down.
We did, really did.
We were parked next to a really cool gold RX-7.
Yeah.
And I talked to the owner.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, because he was sat in chairs like behind it, but he was like really cool and chill. Like he made
Okay.
a joke about like, oh, I'm gonna tell people that this white Porsche is mine or something. He made like a funny joke, but I tried to impress him with my knowledge of RX-7s.
Yeah. I saw him because we had the line was pretty long to get into the section that we were in, and he was behind me, so I was admiring his car in my mirrors, and it looked really good.
Yeah.
And there was a car in between us, so you were in front of me, but there
Yeah.
was a W123 I think it was a 240D.
Yeah.
So diesel, perfect, beige.
Mm-hmm.
And untinted. It had 4 people in it, and so I had a long time to just kind of like stare at the car. And it breathed in a bit of diesel fume, but other than that, like the car was amazing. And what I love about it was there are no headrests in the rear seats.
Oh wow.
Which is wild because like I was just thinking like if you get hit from behind, like the rear windscreen is what
Right there.
catches your head.
Yeah.
But I love the fishbowl effect though of that. Like you just don't. I mean, obviously you don't see
think
that
of
anymore.
yeah.
But yeah, just seeing that whole effect. Yeah, there were a lot of good cars.
A lot of good cars. Yeah. I mean, again, it's like we were there for like 4.5 hours, and I don't think like it just flies by.
Yeah,
It really goes by pretty quickly.
yeah. It does, and we always see familiar faces there. I saw Art.
Yeah, I didn't run into Art this time.
Yeah, he's always buzzing around. There's
he's
always a lot
always
to do.
busy. He's always
yeah,
very
there's always a lot
busy.
to do. And our friend Michael Furch
Yes.
brought a car as well.
He brought a Mondial 3.2
He did.
Ferrari.
Yeah, looked great.
Mm-hmm.
And he was noting that like he would sit in there to like eat, and people were shocked that he would be eating in his vintage Ferrari, but like he uses his cars,
Yeah,
which is
yeah.
amazing.
He is a huge Mondial enthusiast,
Yeah.
evangelist
Yes,
for the
yes,
Mondial.
yeah. And there was, I wish we could have seen like the Lagonda up close.
Yes.
So there's an Aston Martin Lagonda, and it was on a platform that was floating in the middle of this like lake, basically at Coda. And I did not realize what that platform was. I don't know if there was a car there last year. Maybe
I
there
don't
was.
think so.
Okay. So apparently it's like a platform on the lake and you load it. So the way they load it, it it's like floating. There's no connection to land. And
the lake is round. Like
It's
the lake is like an
round.
oval or a circle. So
Yeah.
it's not like you could like get this really close to the edge.
yeah, so apparently you have to bring like a flatbed tow truck and cantilever it over the water, put the car onto the platform, and then apparently the lake was malfunctioning this weekend and so normally they would pump the water up so that it looks like it's floating on water,
Oh.
which would be a very cool effect.
Be very cool.
Yeah.
It was a bit choppy because of the wave or the
Oh, man.
wind.
The wind was insane. It was like that last year too.
It was, yeah.
I don't know what if it's like this every season, but it was like 30, 40 mile an hour winds, which is uncomfortable.
Hmm.
But good day though.
Good day.
Yeah, good event.
It was good.
I thought we had more trips than that, but I mean, I guess we went to
Well, we went to Austin to do the rally school, which we didn't do.
Yeah.
So that was really not like a car trip.
yeah, and briefly we did do the Hill Country Rally.
We did the Hill Country Rally,
Yeah.
which that has happened since our last record. And I went to drive that SMG with Daniel Slow.
You did, yeah. So there are a few trips. in
There's a few
between.
trips, yeah.
yeah. And you can read about the SMG
On
M3.
FCP Euro. You
Yeah.
read about the SMG and how I didn't really like it. But I did give it a fair shake. I think I gave it a chance.
Yeah, you came in with like an open mind.
I really did because I thought the premise of the article, what if this is just analog enough that it's good?
Yep.
It turns out no.
No. And it's not so much the way that it
It's
it
not
behaves.
it's not the shifts or like the automatic, it's just kind of everything around it.
Yeah.
The UI, the interface, like actually interacting with the SMG was the
Yeah.
problem for me.
Well, I just gave away the ending so people don't have to spend their 5 cents on your article.
Yeah.
So, on to the next.
Hey, let's talk about some new cars.
We never do.
I know. I did a month ago have a
Mhm.
chance to drive the Honda Civic Type R
Ooh.
and the GR Corollas
Okay.
on a racetrack
Okay,
at
yeah.
the Texas Auto Riders event, which I was shooting, and I
Mhm.
said, I'm going to take 10 minutes and drive these cars because it's important that I do. And everyone said, you can't just drive the GR Corolla. You have to drive the regular one and then the Chorizo edition,
Okay.
Maritzo edition.
Yes.
So I drove the Civic Type R first. This is on the Eagles Canyon Raceway, a track I have driven before, but not in this configuration. And the Civic Type R really is magic. It's
Okay.
really good.
Yeah.
First of all, it looks really good.
Mhm.
The fenders are flared in
Mm.
like a really blistery, like satisfying way. Like they look, it's like very muscular looking. The championship white looks amazing. It's a good looking car. It's not as outlandish as the previous one, but you still know it's special. The interior looks amazing because it's got those great red seats that I think are Recaro's in a black interior, which is a look that I like
Looks very high quality.
with a white car. And it's got a good dash. It's a good car. It drives so nice. The front, like it is front wheel drive only, but it's got just trick torque differential vectoring stuff happening that just makes it where
Round-
it just feels like it can keep turning. It doesn't understeer, and it does also have wide tires and like a lot of grip, but it's just a really nice handling car that really exceeds your expectations and is a very total refined package. So then I drove the GR Corolla. The first one I drove didn't blow me away, and that was the base one. And then I drove the Maritzo edition, which it's got wider tires, stickier tires. It's got a different torque curve. The cool thing about this car, and it does look good. I don't quite like it as much in person as in pictures, but what I do like is that this edition, it's so useless. It has no back seat. The back windows don't even roll down. It has just like a block off plate that's just like a carbon fiber bit that says GR
Yeah.
instead of
I
like
remember
the
that.
window switch.
Yeah.
It's very cool. Something about it didn't it was very capable. It didn't drive like quite as,
And this is all-wheel drive.
it's all-wheel drive.
Has
Didn't feel as refined. The engine's not as sweet and
Mm.
I think the engine's maybe, it's I think that what appeals to people is that it is more like a homologation rally car feel, where it just feels just
Rough.
kind of raw and just kind of explosive. But that Civic Type R felt sweeter. Like the power curve was, more exciting because it kind of built to something, whereas the Corolla just kind of felt similar all the way through. The gearbox on the Civic felt better.
Classic
I
Honda.
came away liking the Honda more.
That
but
seems to be the consensus.
maybe, I don't know. Everyone here at this event liked the Corolla more.
The thing is that, like, I think the Corolla is more charming. And this I say from an armchair because I've not driven either. I think I've never seen the new Civic, but I have seen the Corolla. And the idea, though, the 3-cylinder turbo and just
Yeah.
like the kind of like you said, like the Maurizio edition has basically a blocked off rear seat, which is so like, it's like a race car. Like it's just
Yeah.
so like,
Anything that's like a homologation special, even if it's not quite really
Yeah.
one, in this case, it's very cool. Like, this engine is like 40 more horsepower or 50 more horsepower than the GR Yaris.
yeah.
Like, they really pushed it to higher extremes.
And it has a variable like torque split that's controllable.
Yeah, yeah.
And again, maybe, if it doesn't add to the driving experience, then it's just kind of like, it is kind of like a neat aspect to the car. And
Yeah.
so on paper, like the Corolla seems more interesting to me.
It's very interesting, but it didn't feel as quick and
Yeah.
it didn't feel as refined. And I think that Civic, when you're on a track, I don't know, refinement sounds like the last thing you want, but it's just very sweet and like engaging, and you kind of can build a rhythm because it just all makes sense. And you have this like very satisfying torque pull of the engine that just kind of builds to something. And then you have a nice gear change. Then you have the turning and the handling. Like when you turn, it digs in and just keeps gripping. And I felt more connected to the car quickly versus the Corolla, which kind of seemed more erratic.
And
But also less. It didn't feel as quick.
yeah.
In any scenario, it didn't feel like I was cornering as quick, and I didn't feel like I was accelerating as quick.
Yeah. And, at the end of the day, like a lot of these are probably not going to see any track
No.
time.
No,
And that to say, like, the Civic is probably going to be more civilized on the road.
Yeah. I mean, but maybe the Corolla will feel more special because it is more extreme. So another new car.
Yes.
I was aghast today because I saw that the Integra Type S. I'm not a fan of the Integra or Acura as a concept. The Integra Type S is priced at $52,000.
Get out. I did not know that.
Yeah, so I looked up, and I know there's inflation, so I looked up what the old RSX Type S cost in like 2003.
Let me guess. Wait, okay. RSX Type S. I think they started at like 26 for the base model. So I'm going to say 32,000.
No, it was like $23,000.
What?
For the Type S.
For the Type S?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, I looked this up today in Car and Driver, November 2002.
That seems so
Yeah,
cheap.
so with inflation, that is $39,000.
Reasonable.
Yeah.
But
$52,000 for a car that looks like every car in the Acura lineup since 2011. I'm sure it's fine. I'm sure it's good. It's just not for me.
It's just that $52,000 buys you a lot of other
Does
cars.
it? I don't know if it buys you a lot.
I don't know. I mean, like, I hate to say it. Like,
I don't know what cars cost.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the average price for a new car now is $40,000, and that's just for like a nice basic car, essentially.
Yeah.
But I guess I always think of it in terms of like used cars. There are
Right.
about 1,000 used cars that I'd rather have for that money. That said, I don't know. You could definitely buy an M Sport BMW of some kind, which
Could you? Maybe the
maybe
2 Series Active Tourer.
if the 2 Series didn't look so
X2.
terrible,
Can you buy the X2?
I'm sure you could buy an X2
Ugh.
for that amount of money now.
Last thing that I had, I already told you this, but I thought of an Infiniti that I think is aging well.
Yes.
We talked about this a little bit on the drive, but I just wanted to put this out to our listener.
Singular.
The old Infiniti QX56 that looked like a weird semi-truck kind of.
Yeah.
I think
Like
those
a-
look kind of cool now.
like a Minecraft SUV.
It's so boxy and square, but then it has like the weird kind of like arched roof,
Yep.
partially arched. I think it's a cool fascia, and you don't see them, but when you do, it's like, oh, that's kind of an interesting design. It is kind of like the M45, the good Infinity M45.
Yeah, you're speaking of an era in Infinity design where I think almost all of the cars were good looking.
Yes, we know the G35 was good and everything, but
They were all. I'm gonna say that they were all pretty daring too. Like just the look of it, like the M45, like you said. I think
Yeah.
the Q45, while I think controversial in its styling, I think it was wild and daring.
it had cool marketing and everything.
Neat headlights.
Amazing headlights.
Yep.
I always see that one on Montrose that's in very sad shape.
Yes. Yes.
I guess the thing about the QX56 is the revelation for me is that
Because you hate the current one,
yes,
as everyone should.
absolutely.
Who's paying $80,000 for those? I don't know.
But the M45, I kind of thought that was kind of like unique in that nothing really took a page from that styling or that direction, and I think that this QX56 kind of did, closer than anything else.
Yeah.
That's just kind of like where it's just like this very refined, like ultra refined boxiness.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like this very perfect machined
It was
boxy shape,
Very
but like perfectly sculpted.
futuristic SUV looking.
Yeah, and so to see a familial resemblance of the M45 in anything else was exciting for me. And I
is-
never really considered it at the time. Oh man, and the FX SUV.
Oh yeah.
The FX was
Oh
like
yeah.
groundbreaking.
That was
what a
beautiful.
beautiful. I didn't appreciate it when it was very new, but then I did grow to appreciate it, and it's like now it's like, man, this looked so ahead of its time. It just looks like a concept car.
I argue that was the very first SUV coupe.
I
Yeah.
agree. I think I've passed that theory on as my own to other people.
Yes. Well, amazing. And it's true. Like that's a car you don't see around anymore.
I see them.
Do
I see
you?
them. Yeah.
I don't see those anymore. I saw like the
I
second
actually
gen.
see them. I see them.
Really? Okay. You considered one as before the IS.
I did consider one.
I don't know who would work on it. Honestly, it had like, I guess the V8s were the same V8s that were in the QX.
No, that was I was stupidly, I was only interested in the V8 because I was like, if I'm going to get a boring SUV, I at least wanted to have a V8. I
Yeah.
think a V6 would be the smart choice.
Oh, yeah.
And it was
It just had the VQ.
It was the Nissan FM platform.
Yeah.
It was like the Z platform.
Yeah.
So it probably would be okay.
That V8, those are probably the ones that are dead and buried.
They are dead and buried. I
at this
think.
point. That was the last great generation of Infinities,
Yeah.
and then it was all downhill from there.
Yeah.
So, which is unfortunate. And speaking of things that come to an end, I believe that might be a podcast.
Wow, the way you said it makes it seem like we're ending the show forever.
Oh yeah, who knows? Anyways, thank you for listening. Do follow us on Instagram at
Yeah.
New496. Twitter's there.
Yep. Is
Same.
it?
Maybe. Email us if you must.
Yes.
New496 at AOL.net
Yep.
at gmail.com.
Yes.
All
Well,
right.
we'll see you again in 3 months.
See you next time.
Bye.
Bye.